to 12:30 Eastern Time, or sign up for updates on Mike's mailing list at salessensesolutions.com. Mike appreciates you listening and wishes you good luck on your next sales call.
Well, welcome. It's Mike Krause with the Sales Sense Reality Talk Show. I'm ecstatic to have Janine Driver on our call today, a New York bestseller book, and she's the founder, president, and lead instructor of the Body Language Institute, an elite certification program that offers award-winning advanced communications training that helps executives, salespeople, and other professionals build executive presence, explode their selling skills, and create and deliver business presentations that win new business. Janine and her team of the world's most sought-after subject matter experts have helped clients become the total leader, which ultimately led them to win billions of dollars in new business contracts. Her elite A-list clients come from a wide variety of industries, including vacation home ownership, real estate, financial service, insurance, high-tech, law, media, medical, hospitality, government, consulting, and entrepreneurs. Janine is an international communications expert, published author, keynote speaker. Janine has made appearances on NBC Today, The Rachel Ray Show, and CNN's Larry King Live. She has been quoted in the New York Times, Washington Post, and magazines such as Cosmopolitan and Psychology Today. Janine's book, You Say More Than You Think, the 7-day plan on using the new body language to get what you want, has recently been released in bookstores worldwide and is a Washington Post and New York Times bestseller. Janine's backgrounds include being a federal law enforcement officer within the United States Department of Justice for 15 years, where she trained over 60,000 lawyers, judges, and law enforcement officers how to read body language and detect deception. Janine travels worldwide throughout and the power of body language and how to use to get what you want. Janine also is a popular keynote speaker, presenter, and is a certified instructor for the Institute of Analytic Interviewing, bodylanguageinstitute.com for more information. Janine, good afternoon. I'm ecstatic to have you on the show. How are you this afternoon?
Good, Mike. It's an honor to be here. I'm excited to share some of my strategies and behind the closed doors at the CIA and FBI and Scotland Yard Police and ATF, some of the secrets we talked about with using body language to get what we want, which was always the truth, from bad guys. And I always say, Mike, if I can get bad guys to confess, I can help salesmen get more yeses.
I agree, and it's one thing that salespeople overlook all the time is the body language. We're known as to be talkers, and we don't read people as well. I have read your book, and I enjoyed every page of it, and I think it's just a first-class thing for any salesperson. It's a tool to have on you at all times to understand body language. Walk us through a little bit about your background. It's fascinating, and tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself.
I worked for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms. My dad said at least one of his daughters turned her hobbies into a career. I said, real funny.
Yeah.
So I worked with ATF for 16 years. I worked at the World Trade Center, actually, left just 2 years before the big 9/11. But worked at the World Trade Center. I've lived all over the country with the government. I'm from Boston initially. I now live in D.C., where I retired at the age of 37 when I got a $500,000 book deal with Random House. And if I can do it, if I can grow my business, then I certainly know the techniques I've used to get me to be where I'm at, to retire at such a young age and be as successful financially as I am, that your viewers can and your listeners can use those same techniques. You know, while I was with ATF, Mike, I investigated skinheads, Nazis, people who are selling guns to our kids' kids, people who are not the best of of society. And to date, I know my bio said 20,000. I trained 20,000 cops, lawyers, and judges while with ATF. Since that point, I've probably trained about another 60,000. I'm a keynote speaker at the International Chiefs of Police, IACP, conference every year where I speak to 5,000 chiefs, literally standing room only. The chiefs actually come up to the front of the stage and sit on the ground at my feet because the room is so incredibly packed. I bring and I stay on top of all the current information on detecting deception to make sure cops are keeping our streets safe and that they keep going home to their families safe at the end of the day. And I always say, at ATF, I sold the hardest product on earth to sell. Mike, I sold a one-bedroom suite in a gated community, completely furnished, toilet a couple feet from the bed. We actually even throw in a meal plan, like a cruise ship. I sold jail. My gated community, one-bedroom suite was jail. And let me tell you, how you sell jail is by establishing such great rapport that people give you what you want. And in ATF, what we want, we don't want 20% down, and we're not going to run a credit check on you. What we want is the truth, and how we get it is by building trust, building rapport, and I think we make a big mistake when we don't invest enough time in the building rapport aspect. And so my book really outlines what I used in law enforcement. And as a matter of fact, as you know, Mike, you read the book, every chapter starts with a law enforcement story. Like I met the two guys that got Jeffrey Dahmer to confess. How did they do it? And can you use those skills to get more yeses? Of course you can. I met the guy, James Kavanaugh, who got the women and children out from Waco, Texas. James Kavanaugh is a good friend of mine. He's the hostage negotiator. He also took down one of the integral people in ATF that took down the D.C. snipers several years ago. So you hear about these stories. I literally put them in there with real people and real names. That's one of the big things. I'm dubbed the lion tamer, Mike, L-Y-I-N, because my specialty is how to tell people are lying. And when I put this book together and I was using these law enforcement stories, I told everyone, I'm sorry, I can't give pretend names. I don't like books like that. I think it's inauthentic. I always feel like I can't use the real person's name, so we'll call him Mike Krause. And I always feel like that Mike Krause is a made-up person to fit your story or your theme or your point or your message. So for me, Sissy Bray, the ATF agent in Chicago that took down the Latin Kings, guess what? Sissy Bray, that's really her name, Sissy Bray. And so it's all about just being authentic, building rapport, building that trust. And that's what I did for years, 16 years with ATF. My specialty was firearms trafficking and interrogation.
That's incredible, and you bring up a great point with rapport. And I think that's another thing that sales professionals overlook a lot. You know, there's a delicate edge. Can you talk a little bit more? You mentioned the right side versus the left side. Can you explain to the listeners a little bit more about that, about how they should be looking at their prospect or client?
Well, that's very interesting. Wow, you go right for the heavy stuff, Mike. No fooling around with you. What I call you get right to the platinum advice. This is very interesting because a lot of people in law enforcement are upset that I'm sharing these secrets in my book and on your program and on television shows like the Dr. Oz show or the Today Show. The new right side rule is this. In sales, a lot of people believe and have been taught and are continuing to be taught by many, many people in sales training, many, that when you want to establish rapport and build trust, you make sure you sit at your client's right-hand side. You make sure you stand at your client's right-hand side. And there's many reasons why. Some people say because it's, has to do with right brain and left brain, and then if you're sitting on the right side, you're affecting their left brain, which is logic. Other people say, well, you sit on the right side because when you shake someone's hand, you're shaking their right hand when you say hello. So you've just created an anchor because you're saying something positive, like I'm excited to be here. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. Or I'm excited. I just heard about your company. Congratulations on the big award or the big win for the new client. And you shake their hand saying something positive. So you create a positive anchor to their right side. Well, at ATF, we had taught this. I was a lead instructor at the academy, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, FLETC, and I taught it just the way I was taught, and I taught it there for a decade until eventually I have this one woman in a seat, and I go to her right side to establish rapport. We call it the hot seat at ATF. We put you up there and ask you very difficult questions so we can watch your behavior as you tell us very difficult stories that you don't want to tell your classroom of peers. And I stand on her right side, and she completely closes up. Her belly button turns and faces away from me. She has deep swallows. Her brows come down in a micro-expression of anger, and she begins to give me the cold shoulder. Her nose literally flares in disgust. This woman looks like she's going to rip my face off, and I'm just trying to establish rapport. I'm trying to get the sales process started. So I'm standing there. She goes, listen, I don't like you on that side. I'm just letting you know. And I go, no, we always like people on the right side, and this is why. And she goes, I don't care what you're telling me. I'm just letting you know I don't like you there. It's very intimidating. it immediately puts me off towards you. I had to take a break. She was so animated. I took a class break, and I thought, thankfully, I'm very right-brained. So creatively, I stepped outside the room, and I thought, all right, let's put this to the test. Let's start to challenge conventional wisdom, things we've always been told about sales, things we've always been told, strategies and secrets, and let's challenge them and see what works and what doesn't. And that's what I did. I found out that actually 50% of the country like people on the right side, or 50% of people like people on the right side, and 50% people like people on the left side. And that's about the average. I've tested companies from Procter & Gamble, from Coca-Cola, to AOL, to Booz Allen Hamilton, to Lockheed Martin, to the team that puts together the show called Project Runway. One of the executive producers, Desiree Gruber, brought me into her PR company where I tested those people. And it's about 50-50. So this is crucial. This is something that many people in sales have been told, Mike, you always sit on the right side. But guess what? You're getting that wrong 50% of the time. So if you really want to establish rapport and build trust, you need to gauge their behavior. See when they change. Try both right and left side while you're standing up and you're talking, before you sit down. Do you know most confessions happen walking from the jail cell to the interrogation room, or from the interrogation room to the jail cell, or standing by the door at the interrogation room? That interrogation room is very intimidating. We know we're about to be sold to, right? Bad guys know they're about to be sold a bowl of goods. They know they're about to be convinced to tell you the truth. So there's a fear. Just like in sales, we know when we sit at that table, you're going to try to sell me something. I know when I sit across from you or next to you in that room, that's the room where the sales takes place. It's a real great tip to hesitate outside the room before you go in, and create that rapport. Establish the small talk as you're moving to the room, or before you even enter the threshold. You need to get the ammunition that you're going to use for the sales pitch. You have to establish that rapport. And then try both sides, right and left. Once you figure out, you'll see. Once obviously my book highlights a lot of steps to make this happen, and we'll talk about body language today on this interview, what to look for. But essentially, when you figure it out, if your client likes your right or left side, put a note, just like anything else, in your file. So you know that Bob from Procter & Gamble, that's in charge of the secret campaign, he likes people on the right side, but his assistant Janice likes people on the left. So you review your notes before you go to those meetings, so you're maximizing your time with them and maximizing your bottom line, and you're not walking out of a room leaving cash on a table because you believe one of these myths that you always sit on the right side. You don't always sit on the right side.
I agree, and that's funny that I didn't know that about criminals, but I always say the deal is made in the hallway, not in the boardroom. It's so funny how everyone's guard comes down in the hallway, and I can remember a large deal that I was working on, and nothing happened in the boardroom, and then finally she told me the truth on the way to the elevator why the deal wasn't moving forward. It was nothing in the boardroom, so that's interesting that the criminals do the same thing. They break down right before they go in or they come out. Because there is so much pressure in there, and they know that's coming. So.
Well, listen, Mike, I just pitched a show to a bunch of networks, to to Lifetime, to A&E, to Sundance Channel, to TLC. And I went out to all these networks, and it's a show on body language to help give people an edge in the game of life. And when I met with the woman from Lifetime, it's very interesting. The woman from the senior vice president, and we hit it off great. I did my research. I knew she went to Brandeis University. I had done my research. So when I went in, I don't show my cards and say, oh, I understand you went to Brandeis. I start talking about going to Waltham. I'm a graduate from Waltham High. And talk a little bit, you might notice my Boston accent. I'm from northwest of Boston, little city called Waltham. Next thing you know, she's chiming in, and she went to Brandeis, which I had already known, right? So we get great rapport going. Ends up, her father went to the same high school as my parents. I mean, I found boatloads of information. So the We network was great. When I went to go sell my show to Lifetime, completely different. The woman from Lifetime I'm a blue-collar kid. I'm rough around the edges. This woman was very polished. She was super sophisticated. She just was completely different than me, a type of woman that would teach an etiquette course, just really, really polished. And the sale was not working well. You know, I was in there, and I have a rule when you're selling that you should never talk more than 5 sentences without asking a question. and you may already know this, after 5 seconds, and this is one of the guys that works for me at the Body Language Institute, Steve Fasella. Steve taught me this. He said, listen, every 5 sentences, ask a contraction. And what a contraction means is he'll say, every 5 sentences, he'll say, shouldn't we all have this? Shouldn't we all be able to use body language to get what we want? Wouldn't it be nice if you knew more than the person sitting across the table from you? Couldn't, wouldn't, didn't, all the contractions. He says every 5 sentences while you're selling, you say 5 sentences, you stop, use a contraction. Didn't, couldn't this be a show on Lifetime? I mean, can't you see your viewers talking about this show the next day after they watch it using these techniques? I mean, shouldn't that happen with every show? After they watch it, they're talking about and literally the executives of the TV world are nodding their head yes. They're saying, yes, yes, I can see it here, yes, yes. Well, guess what?
Yeah,
with Lifetime,
absolutely.
I'm not connecting, Mike, with the woman from Lifetime, the vice president. We go to leave, and I walk out in the hallway, and it's like my final little snap, you know, that one little, I've got one chance. You know, we make that big mistake when we shake their hand and say, okay, well, thanks for meeting me, and you walk out of their office. Your job is to keep that conversation going until you get out of the office, because that is exactly what you said, this safe zone in the hallway. And so I just simply said, I go, have you ever met someone that worked for ATS? I go, by the way, did you ever meet someone that works for ATS? Just trying to say something, because I wanted to get into something cool about the law enforcement stuff. She's actually, I'm from a family of FBI agents. My father, my 2 brothers are all FBI agents, and my sister is an agent. So we talked for 20 minutes about, I said, I knew there was this calm confidence about you. It makes sense. You come from a cop family. And we start chatting for another 20 minutes. The interview itself, the pitch meeting, was 30 minutes. This was 20 minutes. Guess what? I have an audition for a show with our Lifetime on the 31st of January.
Congratulations. And that's exactly, now, if you didn't plan, which a lot of people don't, and that's what I got out of that too, you did your research, you had your one question at the end and build rapport. Most salespeople don't do that, so that's so critical to do that. That's awesome job.
Thank you, thank you. You know, and it's all about the body language. It's simple little, I could tell this woman just wasn't connecting with me. And simple strategies, what I call the belly button rule, for instance. So the belly button rule is we face our belly button towards people we like, admire, and trust. And we make a huge mistake when we go to sell and we're meeting in front of a team of people, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 9. And what we do is we reach across the table, or even if they're in front of us, we go down the line like it's a funeral procession. We're at a wake, or it's right outside of a church and someone just got married, the receiving line. And we shake their hand and we say, hi, nice to meet you, and we go down the line. Well, our belly button typically, with most salespeople, is facing straight ahead, and we reach our hand out like we're going to do a jumping jack to the side of our body, and we shake one person's hand, we move forward. This is what's called the cold shoulder, Mike, because we face our belly button towards people we like, admire, and trust. I call this naval intelligence. And
that's
you can
cute.
tell,
I love that.
Oh, well, thanks, Mike. Yeah. In a room, when you're sitting there and there's 8 people there, and the CEO is one person, well, how many belly buttons are facing the CEO? Because if 2 of the people are facing their belly buttons towards the CEO, their legs are crossed in a direction, actually angling their body towards the CEO, but the remaining people, the remaining 6 people, are facing the other guy at the end of the table, then guess what? That other guy at the end of the table has a lot of pull. And I'm not saying don't talk to the CEO. Of course, say, hey, Brian, and address him, but make sure you're talking to that other leader, like Brian or Steve. Look at Steve. Let me ask you a question down there. And make sure you're pulling that person in too, because how many belly buttons are angled towards these people? They're giving you valuable information about who has the power and the influence to decide if they want to invest in you or your product or your company.
Absolutely. And boardroom strategy and body language are definitely hand in hand the same. And I was always wondering about the handshake, going back to what you said, and you gave me a tip in your book. The person that comes in too powerful, and I finally know how to overcombat that. And so thank you for that. And I'll leave that as a hanger. But it is always so much, it's so important to have that first impression and that handshake. And I know it's hard to kind of, can you give the listeners some tips on the handshake?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you something that I don't even say in the book, but I do talk about in my corporate events when I hit the stage. I was just in Vegas 2 days ago speaking to 500 people in sales. They do fundraising for high schools and junior highs and kindergartens in elementary school, when you buy the wrapping paper or the cookies or the frozen food or the nightlight with your son's picture on it. And they have a really tough job because they're training the kids. So I just spoke to them, and it was amazing. I've already received emails from people already about the feedback they're getting from working with the kids. Just this morning, it's amazing, and text messages from the group. Then 2 days before that, I was in Florida speaking to 1,000 people in sales. This is what I do, is I train sales, and the crucial part of sales is that handshake. When you go in, and this, I don't mention this in my book, but I do say it in the classes, is this. When you go in and someone gives you the bone crusher, where they squish your hand really, really hard, a lot of people don't know what to do with that, especially women in sales, because they can't squeeze as hard back, because the guy just broke all the bones in our hand. So we're almost at a loss. And sometimes what we'll do is we'll make a micro-expression, our nose wrinkles of disgust. We're like, oh, hi. That's breaking rapport. Remember, rapport is simply this. People like people who are like themselves. So when someone gives you a bone crusher, what I recommend doing is you hit their upper arm with what I call 3 hits, a squeeze, and a jiggle. So it's like, hey, Steve, how are you? Hey, Mike, hey, Jeff, how you doing? 3 little hits, a squeeze, and a wiggle. And a hit should be hard enough that it leaves a little bit of a red mark in their top part of their arm. Not like a, hey, honey, you're snoring type of a hit, trying to wake someone up. But what happens is this, and it may seem like that you would not want to do something like this. This may seem insane as a tip. But people like themselves. And when the bone crusher comes in and you do those 3 hits, a squeeze, and a jiggle, and you say, Steve, how are you? Guess what he's going to say? He's going to go, you know what? When you walk away, I like that guy, Mike. I like him. I want to know more about that guy. Or what was that girl's name that was just here? I like her. I like her. I want to do business with her. So when people come in with the opposite, the wet fish, guess what you do? Make sure you put a note in your file that they have the wet fish, that they barely shake hands. Because you don't want to go in with your firm handshake matching power with power. Because you're saying we're not alike. They do the wet fish, you go in, you treat them with the way they want to be treated, not the way you want to be treated. And so don't wrinkle your nose. I will say if you do the wet fish, it is perceived. See, this is the difference between my book and why my book's an international bestseller, and selling like hotcakes in countries like Japan and Russia and Germany and China, because I talk about getting a baseline. What is someone's baseline behavior? How do they normally behave? You have to baseline everything. And right here, you need to baseline someone's handshake. But you know what? It's perceived when you shake with the wet fish, it's perceived that you have a low self-esteem. Low self-esteem. Does it mean that? No. When I wrote the book with Random House, they go, what do you want to write about in the book? I said I want to write 300 pages that's saying body language means nothing. Because there's so many books out there that are body language dictionaries and say when you cross your ankles, you want to be someplace else. When you touch your face, you don't believe what you're saying. It's just not that simple. You have to get a baseline. You have to pay attention. What are your clients' baselines? So when you go in, you can adapt how you're behaving. I mean, it's just common sense. People just don't know what to do.
I agree, and there are a lot of books out there on body language, but yours, I think, is different because it has a personality to it. It also has your extensive background with ATF, and it's been tried and tested. It's not just a dictionary about body language and just leave it at that, or firm handshake. It actually gives you the tools that you can overpower or come back at these forceful, let's say, CEO people or what have you. So
Right.
I want to go into go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, I was just going to say one last thing about this handshake is that when we go in and shake the hand, a lot of us think establishing rapport is complimenting someone, and it is. You know, I like that tie. But can I swear on this show or no?
Sure.
Can I say? All right, good. So, because you can say, I like this tie. I love your tie. Nice to meet you, Steve. I like that tie. And the guy could say, this piece of shit tie, my ex-wife gave me this tie. So now you didn't build rapport. You've actually broke rapport, right? Because now he's thinking about his ex-wife. I love your shirt. Oh, this crappy shirt, my third husband gave me this shirt. Be very careful. When you compliment someone, which is crucial, tell them why you like what you like. For instance, I love that tie. It pulls together your outfit so nicely. I can tell you're a man that quality matters. You're a man who pays attention to details. I love your shiny shoes. My mother told me years ago as a little kid, trust a man with shiny shoes. That's a man who's going to do it right the first time. Why do you like what you like? We really are rolling the dice here and gambling with establishing rapport when we compliment someone and don't take it to that next step. Why do you like what you like?
I 100% agree with you, and I, like you, I had a lot of experience. I sold to attorneys for 4.5 years, so I said, if you want to learn objection handling, try to sell to an attorney. Everything they say is a negative connotation back, and I always got in trouble with that, and I would avoid all those close things, and I would always add a little flavor to that. And that's funny. My grandmother told me you can always trust a man with shiny shoes, and I always remember that, so I make sure my shoes are shined. But
right, I do. I look for that. I look for that with business.
I do too.
I look for the men with shiny shoes. Yeah.
Janine, I'm in this meeting and I'm looking at guys' shoes, and I'm like, and women too, and I'm like, and I'm judging. I have pulled together a whole profile on these people just based on their shoes. I mean, and I know I'm not the only one out there doing this. So.
Right. Well, some people look for, hairstyles or cuticles on someone's hand. Do they bite their fingernails? I don't even care about any of that stuff. But I look for shiny shoes because it's programmed in my brain from my mom. So that's funny.
I agree. And you can. And you know what? Have you ever been wrong? The shiny shoes are a leading indicator. I mean,
if they have shiny shoes, if they say they're going to call me Tuesday at 3, guess what? Tuesday at 3, the phone rings and it's them on the other end of the line. Want me to teach you a trick? Want me to teach you a trick here? This is a body language trick that I do with my classes, and it's amazing. I mean, I do this even if it's 5,000 people in the class, all right? So fold your hand right now. So interlace your fingers, okay? And one thumb is inevitably going to be on the top. If it's not, make sure one of the thumbs are on the top. So all of your listeners, I invite them to do this as well. So interlace your fingers and tell me which thumb's on top. Well, you can't tell me if you're listening, but Mike, what thumb of yours is on top?
My left.
Your left thumb, which I'm not surprised about. Probably almost about 80% of people in sales, their left thumb will be on top. So the left thumb on top is very interesting. A study was done out of England by a guy named Richard Weissman, and I had included this study in my book, but I felt like it was too tea leaf reading. It was a little too esoteric, I felt, and I really wanted my book to be backed up with a lot of science. And so I took it out last minute. And then what I decided is I don't want to throw it away. I want to put it to the test. And the study says this, that when your left thumb ends up on top, you tend to be more right-brained. And when your right thumb is on top, you tend to be more left-brained. It has nothing to do with crossing your arms. It has nothing to do with right-handed or left-handed. It literally has to do with your brain type and how you think and how you process the world. So I start to do this test and find out what the accuracy is. 85 to 95% accurate. I'll get a room of 5,000 people, 85 to 95% accurate. 30 people, 300 people. I have anyone who has their left thumb on top stand up because those are my right-brainers. Right-brainers love things like movement. To sell to a right-brainer, you would know that a right-brainer would like something like having a meeting at a Starbucks or walking down the hall as you're selling to them, moving from one room to another, using the whole space, sitting on one end of the table, moving to the other end of the table. Right-brainers are very big at big pictures. Us right-brainers are great at last-minute rules. Last-minute things. We're great at accomplishing last-minute tasks. We hate rules. Right-brainers do not like rules. Now, the right-brainers, by the way, like things like psychology and neuroscience. They've read the book The Secret. They're really big on the latest sales techniques. Right? They may even have a secret vision board somewhere in their house that they're not telling anyone about. Left-brainers like to see the trees, not the forest, like the right-brainers. Left-brainers see the trees. They pay attention to the details. They like rules. If there are no rules when they arrive, they will create rules. They like structure. A left-brainer, when you say it starts at 3, they expect it to start at 3. If you say it's 15 minutes, at 15 minutes and 1 second, they have another meeting planned. We're right-brainers. We say, yeah, I'll be there at 3, and we'll meet for about 20 minutes. 20 minutes means if you're going to give me 45, I'll stay to 45. Right, we'll stay until it's over. That's a right-brainer, where left-brainer really will walk out the door, and because they have something else planned. And so what I found out, 85 to 95% accurate on which finger's on top. So you're more right-brain, Mike. This is very interesting, because if you're sitting around a table and you're selling to people, 90% of the people at one point during the process will fold their hands. It's inevitable. They will sit there and they will fold their hands. They have a thumb on top. You have a 90%, 85 to 95% accuracy rate on how to sell to them. And you can look around the table. If there's 5 people and different thumbs are on top, you know what to say. The guy with the right thumb on top, he wants a statistic. He wants a study, and he wants to hear the study and how it's quoted. He wants to see the video testimonial of a client that's happy with your product and how you help grow their business. Right? With a right-brainer, he doesn't need to see the study. He doesn't even need to hear about a fact. You know what the right-brainer wants? He wants you to have him stand up, to try it on, to move it around, to move him to the other end of the room. He wants you to move his body so you can move his mind.
You nailed me. You profiled me over the phone. So, I mean, that's exactly it. We like to just go with the flow and then be direct, too, and just handle it and get it done. And we do operate well under pressure. Absolutely. So that's fascinating. I want to close down
and we're both,
here, but
Mike. We're both, by the way. We're right and left brain. It's where do we hang out a little bit more. But go ahead. What do you want to know?
Now, I want to know, in closing, because I just love the title, Naughty Bits. Can you talk to the listeners a little bit about Naughty Bits? Because I found that fascinating as well.
Yeah, well, my tool, my book is a tool to reading people accurately and getting what you want. Because at the end of every book, I don't know if you did the exercises, but I have you do different exercises. And what the naughty bits are, I used to call it the groin. So it's the groin, it's the below the belt. And I called it the groin. I was in the green room at the Today Show, and I met up with Ted from Queer Eye from the Straight Guy. He's the cooking guy. And Ted goes, what are you going to talk about today? I said, your 3 power zones, which are your neck dimple, the little indent in your throat, your belly button, and what I call your groin. And you keep these 3 zones open when you're confident. Your hands are relaxed by your side. Today, people buy by confident people, right? So your hands are relaxed by your side, or 2 hands might be on your hips. 1 hand might be on the wall. 1 hand might be on your hip. And I outline all the different moves in the book. But, so he said to me in the green room, let me get this straight. You're going to say to Al Roker, you're going to go on national TV, the Today Show, #1 Morning America, show in America, and you're going to talk about his groin? You're going to say the word groin? And I said, what would you like me to call it? He said, Naughty Bits. It's from the Holy Grail, Naughty. And what happens is this. When we get nervous, we'll often block the bits. So we will often put our coat in front of us. We'll put a piece of paper in front of us. We'll stand with our hands folded in front of us, which is called the fig leaf position. We'll drape our coat over our 2 hands while we're standing there. We'll put our briefcase in front of us. You want to keep all 3 power zones open, your neck dimple, the belly button, and the bits at all times. If you're crossing your leg, American males like to cross their leg in what's called the figure 4 position. The ankle of one foot is across the knee of the other. If you take a picture from above, it looks like a number 4. A male-dominated position in the United States of America. You go to Europe, they'll know you're from the States. Alpha women today will sit this way in pantsuits. Ellen DeGeneres, Oprah Winfrey, Rachel Ray, Janine Driver, right? So alpha women will sit in the figure 4. Make sure when you're doing the figure 4, or if your leg is crossed in the more traditional female fashion, make sure that your bits are angled towards the person you're selling to. The leg that is on top is creating a wall. So if your right leg is on top and the person is slightly angled towards your right, you've just created a barrier. Make sure if they're angled towards your right that you have your left leg on top and those bits are angled towards them. Because what is happening is you're angling your body, and if you were to stand up, you would walk right towards them and towards the deal and towards the value you're going to bring their company. It's crucial. Listen, not only naughty bits, keeping those open, but what happens when they close their naughty bits? What happens when they put something across their lap or they fold their arms and they close down? The old version of sales that started in the 80s, for the love of God, with banana clips and Rubik's Cubes in big, giant hairspray permed hair, is when you cross your arms, I mirror you. And when I mirror you, I cross my arms for a couple minutes. Then I uncross my arms. If you follow me, I know I'm leading you. Really? Do you think Donald Trump has that kind of time, Mike, in the boardroom? Oh, he crossed his arms. I better do the same thing. No. Today, move your body, move their mind. They cross their arms, you hand them a pen. They cross your arms, you move over to their side of the table. You draw something for them. They cross their arms, you get up, and as you walk and you sell, you walk and move their body. Move their body, move their minds. If you are in a sales slump and we're entering 2011, you need to do something about it. Rearrange your office. You know what? Last year didn't bring you the numbers you wanted. You've got that set in your mind. Guess what? Move your body, move your brain. Move your body, move your mind. So move the furniture. We move the furniture in different directions. Literally change the direction of the furniture. If you're in a depression because you're unemployed, guess what? Take the couch you've been sitting on playing video games and watching TV and put it on a different wall. Move the TV to a different wall. You'll change your outcome. You'll change your results in 2011.
Yeah, that is classic how you just said that, too. People are paying way too much time to the TV and the video games, that's for sure. I always call it that change the scene. If you come in and that sales of that prospect is getting angry with you and you have the table in front of them, go sit down. Change that scene because that's not going to happen. It's just going to keep getting worse. Change the scene.
Right.
That is so critical. I love this conversation. We'll probably have to do part 2. We're at the end of our 30 minutes already, but I've had an awesome time talking to you. You're my new favorite guest, Janine.
Oh, Mike, you're so nice. Well, you can make me tie with your other guy. What's his name there?
Jeffrey Hazlitt. So, yeah.
Jeffrey Hazlitt.
He was. He hosted the. Speaking of Donald Trump, he hosted the Apprentice 3 times too. So I'm sure he has that kind of thing. But close down with how the listeners can reach out to you and get more involved with you and your products and services.
Thank you. Well, simply Janine Driver, Janine, Janine, Driver.com. That's my website. Check it out. I have a real cool website. We post the videos. I'm on national television at least once a month. We post those up there because they're full of current techniques that can help you grow your business and grow your brand and change your life professionally and personally, whether you have a kid with autism or you're starting a brand new business as an entrepreneur. We can help at JanineDriver.com. Anyone who buys my book, it's $8 on Amazon right now and Barnes & Noble. All you have to do is you can buy it on my website or buy it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Send me the receipt or simply buy it from my site. If you buy it from my site, I'll autograph it directly to you. We give you my body language swag bag, Mike, which is $200 worth of material. It's emailable, and we send you all of the material I'm putting together for my next book, Business Bloopers, Successful People Avoid at All Costs, How to Have a Date 6 nights a week if you want, How to Detect Deception. It's emailable. We send it out immediately. And get online with Facebook me at Janine Driver and get on my newsletter list. We do video newsletters. Go to YouTube, put in Janine Driver. There's tons out there. Listen, I took Wyndham Vacation Ownership, which is selling timeshare, and I took their average per guest, which was $2,000 APG. 2 days later, after receiving my training, 2 days later, their APG, Mike, went to $13,800. It's unheard of.
Wow.
I made back my money tenfold of what they paid for me to help. What you can get is you can get my information free by just going to JanineDriver.com.
Okay. You are just a wealth of information. And for every sales professional that is not studying body language, hopefully at a minimum, you're just going to be a little bit more aware of how your prospect or client is acting in front of you through Janine's. I encourage you to go out and buy Janine's book. I read it. It's awesome, and I'm going to keep it as a resource. So, Janine, I thank you so much for your time, and I wish everyone good luck on their next sales call. And, Janine, thank you so much, and continued success to you.
Thank you, Mike. And remember, you say more than you think.
That's correct. Thank you. Bye now.